Hello, happy Wednesday. Hello and happy day. I have to share before I start that I embrace technology, but I have had quite a few challenges over the course of the last several weeks. And so this morning was no different. Things were not cooperating, things weren't working. So I am hopeful that I'm not too jittery. I'm hopeful that the view is clear. And welcome to the Creative Connection. I am Cyndi Thomsen, your host. And, I have been wrestling with a question that I think many of us wrestle with. And it has sort of been bubbling up for probably as long as I have been doing this podcast, which was July 25th of last year that I started this podcast. And the question is, who am I? So today's episode, Who Are You, is spawned out of my own personal reflections around that question. And I am going to give you a little origin story about why I do what I do. And I creating a passionate life. And I actually found. So I have shared several times in the last 7 or so months that I am in the memoir was spawned in a creative flow writing atmosphere, and what bubbled up was something that had happened years before that sort of led me to where I was in 2021, which was in fact the year I started creating. It goes back even before that personal physical and health challenge that I had in 2016, which is the time frame of my memoir that I'm sharing. It goes back to my first path with personal growth, which was when I was just in elementary school. And this morning I was looking at Julia Cameron's book, The Vein of Gold. And I was looking at it because I have been contemplating for the artists and the visionaries that I work with on doing another Artist's Way class, which is something that Julia encourages people that have gone through it before, is to facilitate it themselves. And as I was reading through the introduction of A Vein of Gold this morning, there were several quotes that had me reflecting back to the beginning of my journey of looking at that question, who are you? The first one is by Kabir, and it's right inside the beginning of Vein of Gold, right after the acknowledgments and before we begin to set out. And that is, wherever you are is the entry point. Today is an entry point, perhaps for at least one of you listening, whether it be live or on a replay, or perhaps a friend has forwarded this to you. Wherever you are, that is the entry point. And as I bring that up, I think about how I got here. And I am the sum of all things that have happened to me and my responses to them. And as I was sitting in my morning meditation this morning, there was a quote from gratefulness.org that popped up today for me that I just reflected on for a short little bit, and I want to take a moment to read it to you as well, and you will understand why in a moment. This is by Hans Christian Andersen, or Hans Christian Andersen. Yes, the writer, frequently known as a children's writer, although many of the things that he wrote really were for adults, reflecting back on childhood memories. The whole world is a series of miracles, but we're so used to them, everyday things. The fact that I was able to get myself up out of bed this morning, do my meditation, go for a short little walk, do some of my house chores, and now be here with you, that is a miracle that some might take for granted. This morning, I received an email from someone who was working on something for me, and in it, they shared that a close relative of theirs passed away suddenly, just 9 days after their 45th birthday. So being here today is a miracle, but we take it for granted. In another reflection that I had this morning and another sharing, actually, after, if you are here on YouTube, there is another person that I follow that shares a story every day, and I've been following her since COVID and since she began that. Dr. Beatrice Berry, a fabulous woman who has overcome many things, but she doesn't view it as overcoming. She views it as becoming. And she begins every story every day with, I have to tell you a story. And at the end, she closes with, I love you. I wonder what would happen if we all began a conversation. I have to share this with you. And we ended with, I love you. Or maybe even put the I love you first. Why am I sharing this? Because it is my belief that we will never truly be happy as people until we love ourselves and we're able to share ourselves with the world through love. So I'm looking for the other thing that I shared this morning that I believe is something else that came up while I was in my meditation this morning. And before healing others, heal yourself. This is a Gambian proverb. And Dr. Berry this morning shared a story about who's at your door. Who's at your door? And in it, she shared, if this, your eyes and your face are the doorway, who is at your door? And what small act of, and here's another belief that I hold, and that is, if you can do these little incremental acts of service and love at your front door, the world would shift. There would be more love. So why did I start creating a passionate life? Why do I want to work with artists? Why do I want to work with leaders, visionaries, and women who are they find themselves in a transition period in their life and realize that what they have been doing is not who they are. It actually might have been suggested to them that they would be good at it. But there's no passion behind it. What would happen if we looked at everyday things as being miracles and we became passionate about the things that we are doing? Recently, I had someone say to me, Cyndi, I would love to do that, but I don't know where or how to even begin. There's so much noise and push and pull of me out in the world. How do I even start trying to figure out what me, am even passionate about? Right there is why I started to do the work that I do. And it came from a time in my life when I thought I was passionate about something, and then I was point blank told, no, you can't do that. I was 10. My mother, God bless her, who transitioned from this plane to the next in 2017, she taught me something without words. And that thing she taught me is when someone says no to you about something that you are passionate about, the reason you are passionate about it is because it may be a gift that you have, but it's not developed yet. And we all need teachers. We all need mentors. And those that I have had in my life, sometimes I call them mentors, sometimes I call them teachers, and sometimes I call them Sherpas. Sherpas will carry the load up the mountain and guide you to keep you safe until you get to the mountain peak. And then they will say to you, you have learned how to do this. Let's partner together and climb back down the mountain to go to safety and home. My mother found me, she did not know it at the time, but she found me a Sherpa when I was 10. And that Sherpa helped me gain knowledge and understanding and skill around music. But that Sherpa did way more than that, because that Sherpa was with me through my youth, into my early teens, and into my latter teens. And then later in life, I reached out to this Sherpa again and was reminded by her that we all have our own rhythm in our heart and our own music in our soul. And that beat and that song are what we should be moving to. Now, mind you, she crossed my path again right before I started to write my memoir. So she was with me in spirit all through the writing of my memoir. So again, she was a Sherpa, and I reached out to her when I completed it to ask her to read it, to give me feedback, and I found out from her daughter that she had left this earthly plane, and I knew in that moment that she was with me in that story. The title of my memoir, and I'm sharing this with you because it has meaning to what I'm talking about today, is Courageous, a journey from pain to purpose. Quite often, when we are told no to something that we really, really want to do, it is painful. Sometimes that pain is in our heart, it's spiritual, sometimes it's physical. So it's in our body. And sometimes we create that pain in our own minds. Sometimes the pain we create in our minds is our ego thinking that it is protecting us. So, in my moments of existential crisis throughout my life, and like you, there have been multiple existential crises in my life. One in my youth, one in my early teens, one in my mid teens, and one in my latter teens. And as I have grown into adulthood and was married in my early 20s, had children in my 30s, and my children began school and became more independent than needing mom in my 40s, and getting my graduate degree in my 40s. And then as I moved into my 50s and physical challenges entered my life for myself and my husband. My husband has had 2 different forms of cancer. And that was an existential crisis for me as well. This was the person I thought was my soulmate, was be with me till the end, and will. If we leave this plane together or separately, will always be a part of me. And now that I am entering my mid 60s, in 2 short months, I am looking out across the world and across the people that are out my front door. And I am more passionate than ever about helping people find their voice for their passion. Those words could be interchangeable in my lexicon of statements. I am driven to help people create the life that they are passionate about living, and it needs to be connected to their passion. I list artists first on the list of people that I work with because I think that the general public views art as a luxury. It's something that I can purchase and hang on my wall. It is something that I can go do if I choose to, or I can go watch it if I choose to. But I believe that the universe, the divine, the God of all of our understanding, created us, the planet, the whatever your belief is, and has an expectation that we will continue creating and evolving and making it new through creativity. I have had people in front of me, oh, I'm not creative, Cyndi. And then they turn around and come up with the best idea for something, and that is creativity. That is being a visionary. Then there are leaders. Leaders lead. I have been in many positions of leadership. Some were way easier than others because it was just something that I did. I didn't think about it. I just did it. But I have also been in positions of leadership that challenged me to my core. The year or 2 before I started creating a passionate life, I took on a role of leadership in a faith community, a non-denominational, progressive faith community. And as we were coming out of COVID, the faith leader in that community did a couple of things that created some division in that community and walked away. Now, this was not the first time that we had had our spiritual leader do something that created a break in faith, in community, in belief. There had been one in the 60s, there had been one in the 90s, and here we were in 2020 realizing that this was happening again. It was a pattern. Well, as the lay leader, as the moderator of that community, I knew that we had to look in the mirror. We had to look in the mirror and see that this was a pattern. And that, in fact, there had been multiple things around the idea of boundary. Not all the same issue, not all the same gender of person causing it, but there was an issue around boundary. So I shared with the people that I was leading that I thought we needed to take time to really look at who we were, what was happening, and how we might be contributing to this pattern that was happening. Oh my gosh, you would think the world had come to an end. That was in 2021, which was in fact the same year that I created my official business, Creating a Passionate Life. And I will tell you that for the last 5 years, that decision to be self-reflective, to ask the question, who are we? Who are you? Who am I? Is still having ripple effects of resistance. And I know from personal experience that resistance is a signal that something needs to change, that we have gotten too complacent in our everyday things. And asking the question, what if we did it differently? What might the new miracle be? I have no idea what will happen for this community, but what I know is that that question, what if I leaned into the resistance and took a breath and stopped resisting? What I find when I do that is my inside, my inner core, my core essence, my heart, my mind, it becomes silent. I find a still, quiet point. And if I allow that still, quiet point to exist for just a little bit longer than what feels comfortable, I get clarity on something that I could do that would be different than what I have been doing that's causing a pattern that I realize I need to break. Once I find that still center point, that quiet space, and I find the clarity, I then realize I need to center and focus. I need to find my voice. I need to find the action to put into place something new for me. this is a whole pattern of becoming, transforming to the person that I am becoming. I do not believe that we were put on this planet to begin life as that baby and remain as that baby. Over time, we grow up, we learn to walk, we learn to run, we learn to swim, we learn to bike, we learn to play sports, we learn to love, we learn to talk, we learn to give speeches, we learn to paint, we learn to dance. We are beings that are learning all the time. The other thing that I have learned that I share with the people that I work with is that we are not here to do it alone. Human beings are meant to be social. It's interesting because I think out in nature, and I keep looking out my window because I have the roof of my garage right out here, and that roof of my garage, the birds like to come to it, and it's never just one bird. It's usually a little group of wrens or a few crows. Even the blue jays, which one might think like to be by themselves and be noisy and squawk, they always travel in pairs too. And we have a couple of doves, and I'm not sure where they exactly nest, but in the summer, the whole dove family comes to our backyard where my husband loves to feed the birds. And the squirrels, they travel in groups as well. Think about it. We do better in partnership or groups. Smaller groups are better than bigger groups, but we do better in groups than we do by ourselves. Ideas flow, innovation happens, new things are created. All of those things are who we are, who you are. So the question is, who are you? What are you passionate about? That you lose track of time when you are in the midst of it. I recently took on the role of directing a group of middle schoolers in a play, and there are 30 of them, and I'm about to add 6 more today that will be the crew. So there's 40 of them almost, and me, and a couple of parent helpers. When I agreed to do this, I was a little intimidated. My brain said, "Oh, what have you gotten yourself into?" I have grown so much. I have learned a lot from these 6th, 7th, and 8th graders. I've learned about myself. I've learned about people. I've learned about what it looks like to not be afraid to ask a question. I've also learned what it looks like when you are nervous and have a hard time expressing yourself. Mm-hmm. What have you gotten yourself involved in lately that feels like an expansion? Chances are what you are passionate about is in that thing. I'm a big fan of Rumi, thanks to one of my mentors on the journey to establishing my business officially. I unofficially did the work that I do prior to making it official. And Rumi has this about passion for purpose. Love, like life, flows through the heart. Feel the thrill of the flow and say nothing. And again, love, like life, flows through the heart. Feel the thrill of the flow and say nothing. And one more time. Love, like life, flows through the heart. Feel the thrill of the flow and say nothing. This one I am reading from Alana Fairchild's Oracle book. And she goes on to ask a couple of questions that I want to leave with you today as your reflection questions. But before I do that, if there was anything that I shared today that you would like to find out more information about, you can go to my website, which is my name. It's also listed in the show notes. Find your still point. I do have an upcoming half-day workshop on finding your still point. It is a week from this coming Saturday, March 7th. I have a link for that in the show notes. If you are fairly certain you know how to find your still point and you want to become centered and focused, my next Center and Focus workshop is on Wednesday, March 18th in the evening. And if you would like to find out more about my upcoming book, I have included a link for that as well. Or if you're like, I just want to stay connected, I just want to keep tabs on what Cyndi's got going on, you can subscribe and like this channel or sign up for my newsletter, which there's a link for that in the show notes as well. So let me share the Rumi quote one more time and then a couple of Alana Fairchild's reflection questions. Love, like life, flows through the heart. Feel the thrill of the flow and say nothing. Do you yearn to find your way? To fulfill your divine destiny? To know the purpose for your presence within this sacred body of the Earth Mother? Your heart is questing for deeper meaning. It desires certainty as to your sacred tasks for this lifetime. Your heart wants to know why you were born, for what purpose. You must know that the answer to these questions is love. I bring your answer straight from the heart of the universe. Be wild within your passion. Do that which stirs the soul, even when it makes you uncomfortable, especially then. For what is being truly alive is not the decision to be open instead of resistance, but it is to be wild rather than comfortable, so that at any moment we will be ready for the invitation of the divine beloved to come closer. I call you now. The you that is beyond your mind, the you that your heart knows, the you that cannot deny life. To that you, I ask this question. what stirs the passions of your nature. Do that. Be that. Until next week, thank you for being here.